Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau has been facing increased criticism over his party's handling of the economy. We have the details. Political reporter Brian Lilly has a campaign update, including where the recent polls place the popularity of our federal party leaders. And BCN has an exclusive story about a special event held in Brockett, Alberta, remembering those who died from a drug overdose.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Our country's federal party leaders were on the campaign trail yet again. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau faced criticism for his handling of the economy as Stats Canada reported a contraction between April and June. Trudeau says the economy is bouncing back, but Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole says that's not what he's hearing.
We have already started decreasing the amount of supports come out through this pandemic because our economy is bouncing back extremely strongly, but not everywhere. We know that certain areas, we're continuing our support for the arts and cultural sector, which is still affected because we can't fill up the theaters to the same numbers that we used to have. We're going to continue to be there for workers in our hospitality industry, our tourism industries that are still affected by this pandemic, even though the vast majority of Canadians are vaccinated.
I'd like to quickly comment on news from the OECD and Statistics Canada showing poor economic performance. These reports give us a sobering reminder of the fragility of our economy. It confirms what Canadians already knew. Under Justin Trudeau, Canada's economy is getting worse, not better. Life is getting harder, not easier. Under Justin Trudeau, we are heading further down the road of recession, not the road to recovery. Only Canada's recovery plan will stop the out-of-control spending, borrowing, and debt that's gotten us into this mess.
Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole says he has a solid plan to get more Canadians working again. I asked our political reporter Brian Lilly if O'Toole has a plan to tackle the deficit and the $1 trillion debt.
He's going to take longer to pay down the deficit. He's talking about doing it over 10 years. But even that is being portrayed by much of the media is he's going to cut. He's going to slash. And that's what the Liberals are trying to do. So he's trying to reassure Canadians that no, he'll pay down the deficit in a responsible, reasonable way, that he's not going to slash things that people need in the middle of the pandemic.
Mr. Lilly will also have the latest poll numbers for us discussing which party's in the lead. He'll have full details coming up after business news. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was also on the campaign trail discussing affordable housing.
We want to make sure that people can find a home they can afford. We want young people who are thinking that they can never own a home ever in their lifetimes to not have that despair and have hope instead, that we can actually fix this problem and make sure they can own a home. And that's what we want to do. We want to incentivize Canadians here in our country being able to own a home.
Chris Raleigh is the latest candidate to declare his intentions to run for Lethbridge City Council. Raleigh has a disability and is a low-income person on assured income for the severely handicapped. He says he decided to run because he wants to help out the disadvantaged here in our city and prove to himself that he can do it with a disability.
I decided to run for City Council this year because of how a lot of the candidates aren't really positive about our homeless and low-income people. They're more worried about the businesses and stuff with COVID, which I'm worried about those groups as well. But when the people that are low income or no houses don't have a voice on City Council, it becomes very hard for them to be heard. So that was my main reason for running.
Raleigh says he will fund his entire campaign out of his own pocket. The municipal election will take place on October the 18th. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman will be putting forward an official business resolution motion at Lethbridge City Council on September the 7th. He's asking councillors to vote yes to implement masking for indoor city-owned facilities. Edmonton has already implemented a masking mandate for indoor spaces, and Spearman says our city needs to stay safe due to rising cases of COVID-19 and the Delta variant.
We want Lethbridge to be a safe city. We want to make sure that we can keep our businesses open, and it's going to take the cooperation of many people. There's some dire warnings in the that if you haven't been vaccinated yet, it may be too late. So we would encourage people to go and get their vaccines. But we've also heard that vaccines alone are not enough. People who are double vaccinated can also be carriers. So if we are going to do everything we can to protect others in the community, then we should all be wearing masks and limiting the spread.
Spearman says that because this is an official business resolution, it could be implemented immediately if passed. Sheldon Day Chief is pursuing the mayoral seat here in Lethbridge. Day Chief, who's a former Blood Tribe councillor, says one of the biggest issues our city is dealing with right now is an opioid crisis. He says he has a plan to address it.
The plan that I'm using right now or proposing to the city of Lethbridge is that the city of Lethbridge has the support programs already. They have the budgets already to operate and to provide those services. Now, what we need to do is to streamline those services and get those services support programs together so that we can all work together for the safety and well-being, not only of the person that's addicted to the opioids or whatever, but the city of Lethbridge as well.
Catch some of Sheldon Day Chief's other platform points as we head into this October's municipal election and an extensive interview with BCN's Jeanette Rocher. That's coming up in the second half of our program. Members of the Piikani Nation and other nearby communities gathered to walk from the Piikani Travel Centre to Crow Lodge Park in Brockett, Alberta. People came out on Tuesday to raise awareness for International Overdose Awareness Day. Micah Quinn has those details.
Martin Ironshirt and Teddy Crosschild are the organizers for the Honoring Our Loved Ones International Overdose Awareness Day event. Ironshirt says there are a lot of people that are affected by overdose from areas like Lethbridge, Calgary, Standoff, Brockett, and Pincher Creek.
There's a lot more to it than just, people using drugs. I believe that there's a negative stigma around opioid use, drug use, and that's one of the things that we wanted to highlight today was that we really need to get rid of that stigma, as a people. It's the only way that we can work together and move forward and change that negative stigma is if we talk about it as a community.
The event honored those in the community who have passed away due to an overdose, and their pictures were adorned at the front of the event.
So the pictures that we got are from the Blood Reserve and here. And most of them, those pictures that we showed are family members. And one of them is my brother William and his wife Tammy. He left behind, some children, and one of the ones was the one that created this painting.
Shaylee Ironshirt created the painting that would become the theme for the event after she too had to deal with loss.
My mom and dad both passed from fentanyl. I don't do a lot of this style, I guess. And I like a lot of Simone McLeod's artwork, so a lot of it was inspired by her work. I wanted to incorporate the style of the flowers, and my uncle really liked the saying, honoring our loved ones, so I tried to incorporate his ideas and kind of my experience as a child growing up.
Crosschild says one of the only ways to truly heal is to address the trauma, grief, and loss from the past. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
When September 30th rolls around, there will be no classes that day within the Lethbridge School Division. In a release earlier today, officials say they will honor and recognize the new statutory holiday called the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The release said it will be a day to provide an opportunity for Canadians to recognize and commemorate the history of residential schools and to engage in the process of truth and reconciliation. Officials said the school division will also recognize Truth and Reconciliation Week, September 27th through October 1st, including designating Orange Shirt Days to individual schools. The Lethbridge Police Service has charged 6 people in connection with 2 separate incidents of violence and threats of violence involving a group of young adults and minors. Back on August the 12th, officers responded to a report of a robbery at the SLP skate park at Mayor McGrath. Police then responded on August 25th to the Legacy Regional Skate Park to reports of several people with weapons in the parking lot. When police arrived, they learned a 16-year-old male had been forced into a vehicle by several other males who demanded information about another youth they were looking for. A pellet gun was used to intimidate the victim. The LPS have arrested 6 people, all teenagers. Police say skate parks aren't usually a place you associate with criminal activity.
It's just where kids congregate, you know, whether it's in a mall or in a parking lot, parks in general. I mean, anywhere can be targeted. So, in this particular 2 incidences, this is where things occurred for these 2 victims. Later in the evening is when things like this can happen. I think that they're safe. I think that if there's a group of individuals who want to enjoy the park, by all means, go ahead and do that. I can tell you that since we've addressed these individuals now, that I don't foresee us having a repeat incident happening.
All individuals have been released from custody on a bail hearing with several conditions they must abide by. Officials from Alert say they prevented possibly hundreds of millions of fentanyl doses from hitting the streets in our province after a super lab was dismantled. Police seized more than 31 kilograms of fentanyl, along with 7,600 kilograms of chemicals used in fentanyl production. The street value of the drugs was over $300 million. 13 search warrants were executed as part of Project Essence. The busts included homes and businesses in Calgary, Edmonton, and the Aldersyde areas. Outside of the drugs and drug paraphernalia, police also seized guns, 6 vehicles, 4 motorbikes, 3 trailers, and a boat. $25,000 in cash and jewelry were also confiscated. Police say a number of suspects have been identified and charges are pending. Live horse racing is set to kick off Sunday as a way to end the 2021 Whoop Up Days festivities. Now, the Alberta Thoroughbred Stakes races will take place at the Rocky Mountain Turf Club this weekend. Horse racing events are scheduled to take place 2 days a week from now until Thanksgiving. Both men and women are set to compete this fall. This year's fall meets will include warrior relay races on September 25th. Organizers say there will be lots of action going on for everyone to enjoy.
It's going to be a great, fun fall meet. It's great for Lethbridge, Southern Alberta, great economics. The history of horse racing goes back over 100 years. We've had the greatest jockeys absolutely in the world come out of this community.
Warrior relay racing has been the first in the history over 400 years old. Oh my gosh, action. This is an extreme sport. It's like in your face action, you know, it's so exciting.
Whoop Up Days runs from September 2nd through the 4th, with the first fall meet taking place on Sunday the 5th. BC's Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry says recent data shows that people in BC who have not received COVID-19 vaccines are 10 times more likely to contract the virus. She's pleading with more British Columbians to be vaccinated, including up to 600,000 children 12 years of age and under.
What we're seeing is this has become a pandemic that is spreading rapidly amongst pockets of people who are unvaccinated. We see this very clearly in this cases per 100,000 and in the hospitalizations. And for people who are fully vaccinated, so having 2 doses of vaccine, that level has been low and steady, and hospitalizations have been low. So this is some of the information that helps us understand risk and how well the vaccines have been working in protecting people, both from disease, but also from serious illness.
The University of Winnipeg has reversed its decision to suspend a student from its education program because she had attended a single outdoor protest. The student, who is being represented by the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, had an exemplary academic record. John Carpy is the president of the Justice Centre. John, what peaceful outdoor protest was the student attending, and why did the university have a change of heart?
So this is an education student studying to become a teacher at the University of Winnipeg. And in April, she attended a peaceful outdoor anti-lockdown protest. And the university got wind of this because I guess she had, posted it on Facebook, or, it was a public place. And in June, sent her a letter informing her that she was suspended and banned entirely from the upcoming 2021-22 school year, the school year that we're just starting. Gave no opportunity for her to defend herself or provide an explanation, just told her, you're done, you're out, you're suspended from the program. So one of our staff lawyers, Alison Piovic in Manitoba, wrote a 12-page legal warning letter explaining to the University of Winnipeg that this was illegal to discipline a student simply for attending a peaceful outdoor protest. And we just got word last week that the university is reversing its decision and backing down.
Thanks so much, John. That was John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. By the way, John added that the appeal letter was supported by a letter from an infectious disease specialist, which concluded that the risk of outdoor transmission of COVID-19 at outdoor protests was negligible. Flames raced across treetops and through drought-stricken vegetation as firefighters have begun scrambling to keep a growing wildfire in Northern California from spreading. Officials are concerned that the out-of-control wildfire will reach a resort city at the southern tip of Lake Tahoe. As of August 31st, a total of 6,959 fires have been recorded in California, burning around 740,000 hectares. More than 2,800 buildings have been destroyed by the blazes. At least 7 firefighters have been injured battling the latest round of wildfires. The Caldera fire in California has forced the evacuation of many residents and tourists, but a few people in the area have decided to stay behind.
Well, it's huge for one thing. The winds are worrisome today, more so than they were yesterday, and they'll be more worrisome tomorrow. Depending on what the wind does, I might become a little more mildly concerned today, but I'm hoping at some point I can just nab that cat and be out of here like a shot.
Most everybody left yesterday. I'm just trying to pick up a few things that I don't really cherish, but and that's it. So I promised my kid I'd be out of here as soon as I saw any flames anywhere.
Not a lot of rain or extreme wind in our region here in southwestern Alberta. We enjoyed another beautiful summer-like day in the Windy City with beautiful conditions, and they should continue for the rest of the week. Full weather details are coming up. The lovely weather continued here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is back with all of the weather details. Now, Jeanette, for those who are heading out camping this week, it should be pretty good timing.
Well, you're not kidding. It is going to be nice and warm this upcoming long weekend, just in time for Whoop Up days too, actually. It's just that wind and the overnight lows that are kind of reminding us that fall is knocking on the door. It's just around the corner. Into this evening, overnight low of only 3 degrees. Brr, that is chilly. Into tomorrow, though, sunshine, 19 degrees the high. Up a little bit higher for Friday, up to 23. By Saturday, we're looking at more seasonable temperatures, 24 the high, 26 on Sunday under lots of sunshine. 27 degrees expected for Labor Day Monday with partly cloudy skies, and up to 28 degrees for Tuesday. So tomorrow definitely going to be the chilliest of all of them. Average high for this time of year, 23. 8 degrees is our average low. 37 was our high temperature back in 1967. And in 1975, we had the chilliest, which was 1. 6:47 is when the sun rose this morning, and our sunset this evening, 8:15 p.m. So days definitely getting shorter. I think we're 4 or 5 minutes shorter of daylight than we were yesterday. So it is happening fast. Over on the west coast, Victoria 23, going to be cooler by the water. Lots of sunshine in Vancouver as well. 22 the high. Periods of rain ending in the morning, then cloudy for the rest of the day in Edmonton. 16 the high. 16 also the high for Calgary under mainly sunny skies. Overlooking at the rest of the prairies, Saskatoon, chance of showers. 18 the high. 22 the high in Regina. Under sunny skies. Going to be a bit windy there too, though. Same thing for Winnipeg. Winds, we're looking at showers and a risk of a thunderstorm as well. High of 19 degrees there. Over in Toronto, sunshine, 23 the high. 21 the high in Ottawa with partly cloudy skies, and a beautiful sunny day in Montreal with a high of 23 degrees. As we look to the East Coast, we're seeing lots of rain. Up to 10 millimeters expected in Fredericton, 20 degrees the high. Rain expected also in Halifax, 19. Heavy rains expected tomorrow in Charlottetown, up to 30 millimeters of rain, 20 degrees the high, 21 the high in St. John's with a 40% chance of showers there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
The Better Business Bureau of Southern Alberta is warning consumers to do their research when they make donations to charitable organizations. With the recent Haiti earthquake and those stuck in Afghanistan with the Taliban taking over, there's a desire to help those who need it the most. Wes LaFortune, the communications specialist for the BBB, says there are important tips for you to consider when you think about making a donation.
When you give to a charity, a reputable charity that's experienced on the ground, where they're working, is to give cash if possible. Charities can then designate or direct the funds to the most need, make the most impact. So is it a registered charity? Does it have a registered charitable number? And depending on what your donation is, you will get a tax receipt if they are a registered charity in Canada.
You can visit give.org to see a full list of charities that are operating out of Afghanistan and Haiti. CN Railway says it is evaluating its options after an American regulator rejected its use of a key trust agreement in its plan to buy Kansas City Southern. The Montreal-based company says it is disappointed by the decision from the U.S. Surface Transportation Board, but CN says it remains confident its offer to purchase KCS is in the public interest. The trust would have allowed the American railway to remain independent while a full and lengthy review of the proposed takeover went ahead. But the U.S. regulators said that while the trust would mean CN was not in direct control of KCS operations, it would still be a beneficial owner and share in the profits. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 106 points on the day to finish at 20,690. The Dow was down 48 points to 35,313. The S&P 500 was up 1 point to 4524. And the NASDAQ was up 50 points on the day to 15,309. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 9 cents to 68.59 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 24 cents to 4.62 U.S. Gold was up 2 cents to 18.1393 U.S. an ounce. And silver was even at 24.14 U.S. an ounce. Wheat is at $410 per metric ton. Barley's also at $410. Canola's at $8.83. And corn is at $426 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 68 cents to $127.58. Feeder cattle were up 30 cents to $168.05. And lean hogs were up $1.35 to $90.15. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.25 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman will be putting forward an official business resolution motion at Lethbridge City Council on September 7th. He'll be asking councillors to vote yes to implement a mask bylaw for indoor city-owned facilities. Edmonton has already implemented a masking bylaw for indoor spaces, and Spearman says our city needs to stay safe due to rising cases of COVID-19 and the Delta variant. Coming up, an update from political reporter Brian Lilly discussing some of the hot-button issues the federal candidates have been dealing with as they continue along the campaign trail. Canada's federal leaders have been busy on the campaign trail, once again promising to spend billions upon billions of dollars on a wide range of programs. Things have also been getting a little bit intense at some of the recent rallies. To discuss this in more detail is political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilly. Brian, this week, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau said we deserve to know about candidates facing allegations of sexual misconduct, but according to recent reports, Trudeau also defended a Liberal candidate, and it sounded like a bit like a double standard. Can you explain?
Well, so on Monday, he was asked about a Conservative candidate who had been turfed by the Tories for allegations of sexual misconduct, a guy in Halifax, Dartmouth area named Troy Myers. And Trudeau said, he was asked, well, would you get rid of one of your candidates if they faced similar allegations? And he said, absolutely. And Canadians deserve to know about serious allegations against candidates. Well, fast forward to the next day, Tuesday, and he's asked about allegations against a Kitchener, Ontario area Liberal MP, guy named Raj Sani, who, according to the reporting, it dates back to 2015, following around women at the Christmas party, being what described as touchy and handsy, being an abusive boss, driving one staffer to the point of attempting suicide, and others of making sure that they don't show up alone with him. So Trudeau's asked about that, and he stood by Sani and said, well, there's a process in place, and we have to follow these. Well, it's very different than 2018, before his own groping allegation came out, when Trudeau said that when women come forward, we need to believe them. Now he seems to be saying, well, women experience things differently, and I'm going to stand by my man.
Brian, the Trudeau Liberals have also been facing increased protests in both British Columbia and Ontario. Now, Trudeau himself described this as an anger not seen in Canadian politics ever before. But now you've covered the political beat like I have, and you say this is simply not true?
Yeah, if you look at recent history, or even history, get into the Wayback Machine with Mr. Peabody, and you can find it with his father, with Brian Mulroney, with Stephen Harper, with Jean Chrétien. This is not new to politics, and he should know that. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. 1968, Pierre Trudeau has just recently become prime minister through a leadership race. He's facing a general election. He's at the Saint Jean Baptiste parade in Montreal. Riots break out. Bottles are thrown at him. Separatists were angry that he even showed up. He didn't flinch. He just sat there as they were throwing bottles at him. 1982, he takes a vacation with his three sons. So Justin's on the train. There was so much food thrown at this thing. And this is the famous train ride where he gave a certain type of rude salute to people in Salmon Arm, BC. They threw so much food that they dubbed the train the Caesar Salad Express. Jean Chrétien did the famous Shawinigan handshake. Mila Mulrooney was hit with a sign post at a protest in New Brunswick. Stephen Harper, at his first campaign event in 2015, had someone was arrested for uttering threats. And of course, the Liberals also posted a photo of Harper with his face over top of Lee Harvey Oswald's during the famous assassination photo. So, yeah, the idea that this is new, that it's solely aimed at Justin Trudeau, they can try and do that. And I think they're doing it because nothing else has worked on the campaign. And that's some of the best media coverage they've received was over those protests. But it's simply not accurate.
Now, Brian, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole continues to campaign on economic issues. First, he talked about the affordability crisis. Then he discussed how the Tories would pay down the debt. Is he saying a lot of this to appease fiscal Conservatives?
Well, some of what he's talking about is actually angering fiscal conservatives, people like my colleague Lauren Gunter at The Sun, not happy with O'Toole's platform, saying it spends too much and that we need to tighten the belt quick and soon, comparing, saying be more like Thatcher and Reagan. And while that can be appealing to people, that's not the mindset that the country is in at the moment. When we're talking about Reagan and Thatcher, they came to power at particular times when people were fed up with big government. And while Canadians can definitely see that we need to rein things in, they're still very nervous about the pandemic. So I don't think you could go with that message. So, yeah, he's going to take longer to pay down the deficit. He's talking about doing it over 10 years. But even that is being portrayed by much of the media is he's going to cut. He's going to slash. And that's what the Liberals are trying to do. So he's trying to reassure Canadians that no, he'll pay down the deficit in a responsible, reasonable way, that he's not going to slash things that people need in the middle of the pandemic. But, he's also talking about pocketbook issues for individual families, like getting out of the way, getting government out of the way in certain instances with business to lower costs so that we can have more affordable internet or mobile phone, freeing up a bunch of government land to lower the price of housing, things like that I think will resonate with people because affordability and the cost of living are both very big issues.
Now, Brian, we saw inflation numbers jump in the first week of the campaign, and that became a bit of an issue. Now, Stats Canada says the economy is contracting, it's shrinking. Will that impact the campaign at all?
Well, it might. It all depends on how much voters latch onto it or what Justin Trudeau says. And if you remember, when the inflation numbers came out and he was asked about monetary policy, which drives inflation numbers, he said he doesn't think much about monetary policy. Well, about an hour and a half after StatsCan said the economy contracted, in a significant way in the latest quarter, Justin Trudeau was standing in a suburban Ottawa campaign event saying the economy has bounced back tremendously. So if he keeps putting his foot in it, then it will hurt him. Because, people do vote on the economy. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their kids' future. They're worried about their own future. And so, economic issues, big and small, become very important on the campaign. And he's got to watch what he's saying because he wants to campaign against Stephen Harper and he keeps bringing him up, but he's been in power for 6 years now, which he likes to remind everyone and then says he wants 4 more. You can't blame a guy who's been out of power for 6 years for how the economy's doing now. And so this could become a major headache for him and his party going forward.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh brought out a policy you actually agree with. Now, this may actually be a first on Bridge City News. What policy is that?
He's talking about going after offshore tax havens, and that's something that, the term populist is often just seen as horrible these days. Donald Trump was a populist, so all populism is bad. But look, we've had left-wing populism in Canada, right-wing populism, prairie populism, all kinds over the years. And there are policies that maybe they don't have an anchoring in a particular political philosophy, but they appeal to people. They are popular. And I think this is one of those. You and I are, well, unless you're hiding bags of money I don't know about, how you and I don't have the ability to hire accountants to set up family trusts in the Cayman Islands. And yet lots of Canadians have done this. It's been exposed through this thing called the Paradise Papers, brought out in 2017. It showed two generations of Trudeau Liberal fundraisers. Leo Kolbler, the former late senator who was Pierre Trudeau's key fundraiser, and Stephen Bronfman, who's Justin Trudeau's main fundraiser, of the Bronfman family, of the Seagram fortune. These people with tons of cash keeping it offshore. Why? To avoid paying Canadian taxes. There are rules on if you do that, how it has to be done. We know that many Canadians have violated these rules, but the Trudeau Liberals have not cracked down on it. As I said in a recent column, they don't want to upset their friends in Westmount, Montreal's very tony, high-income neighborhoods, where this is something that has been done. But I think this is something both the NDP and the Conservatives would find a lot of their supporters, and a lot of Liberals would say, you know what? I have to pay my fair share of taxes. You want to talk about paying fair shares? Let's stop people from hiding money to avoid paying taxes.
One of the main Liberal promises is to crack down on house flippers, including a huge tax on that practice, Brian. It's portrayed as a way of really cooling down some of the markets in Canada, like Vancouver. But you say a Liberal candidate in that city in Vancouver flipped not 10, 20, 30, but 40 houses?
Yeah, enterprising reporter from a local media outlet in Vancouver said, well, they heard Trudeau's promise and thought, well, wait a minute, hasn't Talib Nur Mohammed been known for making a lot of money? We're talking $5 million off flipping houses. So they went through the land registry records. More than 40 houses, Hal, since 2015. And more than 20 of them were held for less than a year. And he's made $5 million off this. So, what's interesting is that when Justin Trudeau describes his policies, he campaigns from a very moralistic sounding point of view. He doesn't just say that the people who do this are wrong. He makes them sound evil and that he's the cure for this evil. Well, one of his candidates is doing that. You would think this would be a problem. Mr. Nur Mohammed had been put out by the Liberals several times to speak to media and do interviews on diversity in Canadian politics and the need for more people of color to be in politics. But ever since this broke, he's refused media requests from all the local media and national media as well. He's simply not available. He's out campaigning, Hal.
No, you should really be talking about the keys on effectively flipping houses. I mean, that's really what you should be talking about here. Now, Brian, this capital gains tax amounts to a tax on your primary residence, and I thought this was something the Liberals promised never, ever to do.
Yeah, so this is their anti-house flipping tax, is their promise to deal with people like Talib Nur Mohammed, their candidate, and I think he's running in the riding formerly held by Jody Wilson-Raybould, Vancouver, Granville. They said that they'll bring in an anti-house flipping tax. It is a capital gains tax, Hal, and they had said they would not do this. If you remember back to before the last election, and I believe we discussed it here on Bridge City News, that the Liberals had a policy proposal out to have a tax on selling your house of 50% of the profits if you held it for less than a year. I think it went down to 25% after 2 years, then 10, then 5 after 5 years, and so on. So this was a policy that was presented, it was discussed, they decided not to go ahead with it. And they've been very touchy about anyone who raises the issue. When people write stories or write columns about it, they get very touchy and they deny they're ever going to do this. Well, here it is. It's in their party platform. Now, the party platform only says if you sell the house after living in it for less than a year. But once you've brought that in, how long until they say, well, let's make it 2 years, let's make it 3, let's make it 5?
Right.
At what point do they stop? This is something they said they would never do. Now that it's in their platform, if you remember before the last election, they said they would never raise the carbon tax. That is not under consideration. It will not be done. And then, of course, what did they do? They announced that they would raise it from $50 a ton to $170 a ton. That is a significant raise. So I'm not going to believe them when they say it's just for this one thing and we won't do it to anyone else.
Brian, polls continue to be trotted out showing a fairly tight race during this election campaign. The most recent polls show the Conservatives with a slight lead, and some of the polls have the Liberals with the edge. Now, Brian, you say those are not the numbers to watch. Which ones are?
The numbers to look at are things like how people feel about the leader, negative or positive impressions, job performance approval ratings, things like that. I pointed in a recent column to the Angus Reid Institute poll. Now, their poll, most recent one that I've seen, has the Conservatives at 33%, the Liberals at 30%. Now, that's a snapshot in time. If you want to know where it's going after that, you look at the other question. They asked people, if you were voting just with your gut or heart, or you were voting just with your reason and intellect, who would you vote for? On the gut and heart question, 33% said, if it was just down to my gut, I'd vote for Jagmeet Singh, the NDP. 31% said they would vote for Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives. Only 23% said voting with their heart, they would pick Justin Trudeau. Now, when you ask them intellect, well, 36% said, if I'm voting with my brains and reason, I'll vote for Aaron O'Toole. Trudeau was second, but he was at 29%. These are not good numbers for him. Ipsos has Trudeau has the highest unfavorability rating of any party leader. He's at 53% say, I don't like him. That's higher than Maxime Bernier, who's at 52% and is vilified everywhere he goes in the media. So that's a bad sign for Justin Trudeau. You've got Angus Reid and Leger showing that both Singh and O'Toole are going up in their favorable impressions. Trudeau is going down. That tells you that there isn't a lot of room for growth. The Liberals have to figure out something to change this, or they're going to be changing seats come September 21st.
The turmoil in Afghanistan dominated questions in the first 2 weeks of the campaign. Brian, 1,000 Canadians still want to leave that war-torn country. Now, with Canada's operations wrapped up, how will these Canadians get home? Will the Taliban let them leave?
That is something that's, believe it or not, still being negotiated with the Taliban. And as much as it pains me to say that, they are in control now. This was a planned exit, one that was negotiated with Donald Trump, followed up on by Joe Biden. We had left the country a long time ago. So yeah, we do have to negotiate with them now that they are in charge. And we're trying to get them out. But a lot of people are just trying to flee across the land border to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan is the benefactor of the Taliban. They are effectively in control of the Taliban. I'm not sure that it's going to be a lot better for those people going to refugee camps in Pakistan. All the parties have pledged to bring at least 20,000 refugees, but those are people that have already left Afghanistan. They're not the people who are left behind. This is heartbreaking, but you can already see how that it's dropping off the campaign agenda. It's not the lead question anymore. Now that the Americans are out, now that we're out, it's not driving the agenda the way it did. And I think it will continue to fade a bit. But still, a lot of Canadians want to make sure that the people that helped us are out. A lot of people want to make sure that the veterans that are trying to get the help they need. So let's hope that happens.
Yeah, I mean, Foreign Affairs Minister Mark Garneau says, yeah, we have to negotiate with the Taliban right now. How do you negotiate with a known terrorist entity? It's going to be a real challenge. Political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Hal.
Well, the municipal elections will be taking place across Alberta on October 18th, and today we have the opportunity to speak with one of our Lethbridge mayoral candidates, Sheldon Daychief, who is a former Blood Tribe councillor. Welcome to Bridge City News, Sheldon. So great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, first of all, can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and why you have decided to run for the mayor's office?
Sure. I have, to begin with, I've been living here in Lethbridge for over 33 years. And I have a real, to myself, I have a real connection, a personal connection to the city and our community. First of all, my great grandmother, white-tailed deer woman, was married to Nicholas Sharon, who owned the Sharon Mines back then, and they basically had a hand in starting our community here in Lethbridge. Back then, it was called Coal Banks, and she left after Nicholas Sharon drowned in the Oman River back in 1892. So, but that was basically her legacy, and so that's a real personal connection to me. Also, just making my home here in Lethbridge for the past over 33 years, I've had a lot of personal friends and family that have moved into the city. So I've raised my children around the area as well. So it's got me to the point where I was very concerned where we were going with in the direction that we are currently on with the city right now. Uh, not to mention the crime wave that is rising continuously. But our standard of living here in the city of Lethbridge has really declined. Um, in my personal opinion, it's because we've never had a real interaction with our current and probably the past city council or city mayor for the past 2 terms. And it gets to the point where you wonder where you're going when you're not being notified or being told which direction or what direction or what decisions that they're making in regards to the city and its safe and its safety and everything. So that's what really kind of drove me into running for mayor. I've worked with various different organizations in uh, community planning and stuff like that, especially when I was in council back in 2008. I took the initiative to really promote the safety and healthy and well-being of our community. So that's my personal reason why I'm running for mayor.
That's interesting, your background and also your connection with Nicholas Sharon, which of course is a well-known name here in the community as well. It's quite interesting. Now, Sheldon, you believe that our current city council is too divisive. Is that what you were saying? So how would you go about changing that? How would you bring people together when there are clearly differing opinions?
Well, first of all, I believe in holding people accountable and responsible for what they're doing, because being an elected official, you have certain conduct, code of ethics that you need to follow. And you have a huge responsibility, not to yourself, not to your personal opinions or your choices. You're at that time when you're making decisions for the city or for a large body of people, you have to put those personal, uh, you know, opinions aside and whatnot, so that you can make decisions as a whole for the best interests of your constituents. And so, as a mayor, I would definitely be holding people to accountable with their code of ethics and their code of conducts, and make them more accountable and transparent to the citizens of Lethbridge. And if they're still in a divisive mood or divisive action, I would definitely call them out and have them answer to the people to why they are holding themselves divisive from the rest of the group. Because in regards to my plan that I'm proposing to the city, I'm trying to bring the community together. And when I say the community, I mean everybody that is, that stays within the city of Lethbridge. Because I feel that only together that we can move and create a safer and healthier community.
So do you feel that city council doesn't listen very well then to its constituents? What kinds of changes would you put in place to give Lethbridge residents a more effective voice, if that's the case?
Well, I don't think. Well, yeah, that's part of the reasons why I think it's the citizens of Lethbridge are kind of in the awe of what's going on all around us. First of all, city council right now are not basically conversing or connecting with their constituents at all. There's no accountability. There's no information coming out from the leadership level to the community so that the community knows what's going on. And I'll use the safe consumption site. When that was being brought into the city of Lethbridge, there should have been more consultation within the community, and especially with the businesses surrounding that center, how it was going to affect them. So there was poor planning, poor consultation, and it was done really without input from the community. So when you have situations like that are like a project like that that's going to affect the community as much as it did, and it created a real wedge between groups and stuff like that. There's got to be a lot of consultation going on and a lot more planning. You cannot just plop something in there without support planning it. How they're going to help the addicted to to come off of those opioids. Safe consumption site, to me, can save lives, and it did. But how do you transition out of that addiction? There was no support programs.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask, do you believe that we need to set up another SCS in the city, or are there better solutions?
Well, I believe that's only one small portion of what people need that are addicted on opioids. That's only one small portion of it. If you're going to implement a program or a service such as that, there's definitely have to have planning that's going to have support programs for these individuals that are utilizing that site so that they can have the counseling, so that they can have the treatment, so that they can have an avenue so that they can get themselves off of those opioids. And where I'm coming in from is the plan that I'm using right now or proposing to the city of Lethbridge is that the city of Lethbridge has the support programs already. They have the budgets already to operate and to provide those services. Now, what we need to do is to streamline those services and get those services support programs together so that we can all work together for the safety and well-being, not only of the person that's addicted to the opioids or whatever, but the city of Lethbridge as well. So if you're going to do that, you got to do it right. You can't just have a safe consumption site and think that's going to fix it all, because it won't. We've already saw what happened to it. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, Sheldon, as an Indigenous person, what would you like to see happen in our city when it comes to reconciliation?
Well, I've been very active in our community in regards to that, and I started with my introduction into this interview. I love teaching, and I love children. I like working with children, and the more I teach about our culture, the understanding and the respect, and really just the amazement of that I see of children. There's more of that comradeship or partnership that is growing every year that I do it. And so within the city of Lethbridge, I would like to see where the respect and the understanding of not only the Aboriginal people, but we have a vast, a variety of different cultures within our city now. And as you see with the Afghanistan situation right now, there's going to be more people coming in. So we need to interact with all the citizens within Lethbridge. And that's my goal. And that's part of the plans. What I'm trying to do is bring all of these cultural leaders and just the public together so that we can start understanding who we are. Even just promoting an international cultural fair type of thing where they could showcase their cultural dances or whatever their celebrations are, and just really introduce us to who they are. I mean, I believe in today's society, we're so we're so intercultural connected already, but the understanding and the misconceptions of why people are coming to our country, and there's that I guess that racial thinking that happens from all of those misunderstandings. For the city of Lethbridge, I want to break that down. I want to bring people together, and I want people to understand each other and get to know who their neighbors are. So
Yeah, interesting. That's a good idea. Now, Sheldon, let me jump into something else really quick here, kind of on the same topic a little bit with misunderstandings. But you got into a number of confrontations on your LinkedIn account calling people racist. Can you maybe explain what transpired there really quickly?
well, I'm a boarding school survivor, and I saw a lot of things. I witnessed a lot of things, and I went through some personal things as well. And when my emotions were tapped into that, I my emotions took over, and calling people out. Maybe I did it in the wrong way, but I wanted to call people out so that they can look at themselves and look at their comments and why they were asking those kind of questions and why they were responding to Mr. Or um, Yasmin Singh the way they were, and I guess it just kind of drove me over, over to that side of me, and I'm only human, and I'm full of emotions. I'm passionate what I do and what I talk about, and try to get the education. And sometimes people are so set in their ways, it's like having blinders on them that they don't want to see what else is around them. And for over how many years that we've been living side by side, and we as First Nations people, we've learned everything that we need to know about your culture, about your people, about your society. But how many of you can say that you know about us or speak our language as well as we speak yours? So it got emotional for me and stuff like that. And I, after thinking about it, and and some of the things what I said, I mean, I apologize for it, but like I said, I'm only human. And when the residential school issue all came out with the 250 from Kamloopa, you know it's um it's something that I've been walking around with. I knew the
Yeah,
truth that was going to
it struck a
happen.
nerve for
That
sure.
these it struck a
Yeah,
nerve,
yeah.
real, yeah, it did. And so I responded, and maybe not in the best way, but I'm only human.
Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely. Thank you for kind of diving into that a little bit. So it looks like we are about out of time. We're so thankful that you were able to speak with us today. But really quick and wrapping up, what would you say to viewers? Why should they vote for you on October 18th?
Well, to the people of city of Lethbridge, we all want change. I guess to begin with, ask yourself what that change you want to be. What's the change you want to be? And are you happy with the current direction that the city of Lethbridge is on right now? And that has been for the last probably 8, maybe 12 years. And, and just, look at the other candidates, not only the mayoral, but the council candidates as well. I would suggest, in my opinion, to vote for those people that are talking the same language. Because once they are talking the same language, people are handing out campaign pamphlets. They are talking to individuals out there. So you, as citizens of Lethbridge, can hold your elected officials to what they are saying today. If they are speaking one way and they change when they come into city council, as we've seen certain individuals that are currently in council right now, I guess it really does fall back onto us on what we do to try and hold those people accountable. So, in my humble opinion, I do ask the city of Lethbridge, think about what that change you want to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be your elected officials that are going to be making those decisions for our community. And what I am presenting is a substantial and concrete plan that can happen. And if I can put myself out there, I will say, and I'll follow the presidential promises that Biden made, but there is a reality that I could bring forth a team within the first 100 days that will spearhead this movement that I'm talking about, the strategic plan. Because it's not only dealing with our safety, well-being, it's also going to deal with our economic rebuilding as well for the city. So there's a lot in that plan, but it starts with us.
Thanks so much for being with us here today, Sheldon. Appreciate having you on.
Thanks.
I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.